when I used to teach strategy many years at Harvard and then at UCLA and other places, there's lots of ways of looking at strategy. And so years and years ago, we used to look at the learning curve and the matrix and the five forces and all those kinds of analytical tools. And it began to dawn on me, this isn't strategy. These are analytical tools for analyzing a problem, for thinking about things, for looking at competition, but they're not strategy. Strategy is one. And I started to write a book. And the first chapter of the book was, the first part I wrote was the David and Goliath strategy story. So, and my point in writing about David and Goliath was that the surprise that David is able to beat this giant warrior. And that's a strategy story. Strategy story is about discovered strength. It's about, look at how they did that. Look at how he got made in 5 moves. Look at how, that's a strategy story. Look at how Steve Jobs changed the world when people couldn't expect it. That's the emotion of a strategy story is. So I want to write about strategy. And my wife, Kate, asked me, well, do you define strategy? I said, it's really hard. I can't define it. And she said, well, you can't write a book about it if you can't define it. Because I have this other conceptual scheme in my head that all teachers and writers had, which is that there's a bunch of analytical tools. And, this is back in 2005, 2004. And I gradually came to the realization all strategy is problem solving. It's a form of dealing with challenges. And that was a basic idea going in the book. So if that's the core of it, what's the basic activity? What are you doing when you create a strategy? Well, you're diagnosing the situation. You're trying to figure out what's going on here. What's the nature of reality that you're dealing with? Now, humans can't understand all of reality. No one can. So part of what a diagnosis is a decision about what you're going to pay attention to. And a hypothesis, or several hypotheses about, what's going on? How do things connect together? And that's the beginning of the diagnosis. And so diagnosis is an understanding of the situation that you're in. Well, that's not enough. And you can use any of those tools that are famous for that, and you can try 5 forces. You can do any one of a number of things to try to comprehend the situation. The world is more complicated than 2x2s, unfortunately. I was educated as an electrical engineer, and my early years were spent designing spacecraft for NASA. And when I got into looking at business and business strategy stuff, I was always amazed at how unintellectual it was. That here I was struggling to master Z transforms and yet these people were looking at 2x2s and little diagrams and arrows and saying, "Oh, that's what the company's about." So a rich diagnosis of the situation, but then a guiding policy. Okay, so the guiding policy is what are we going to do? Now, it's a simple thing to say, a guiding policy, and the guiding policy is sort of the strategy. It's the core of it. It's here's how we're dealing with the situation. And yet, when I say that, it flies in the face of, as I was writing that, I had a client who had 17 priorities. This is what we're doing. We have 17 priorities. And that's the opposite of a guiding policy. That's a laundry list of all the things we wish would happen over the next year. We're going to gain market share in China. We're going to cut our emissions. We're going to save energy. We're going to become safer. We're going to cut costs. For all these different things that we're going to do. And they're all priorities. Now, lots of people misuse the word priority when they're trying to do all that. You wouldn't want to be in a commercial airplane and hear the tower say to the pilot, I'm giving priority to the following 3 planes on runway 5. Right away, there's something wrong. Well, that's the word priority. It means the first. It doesn't mean the grab bag of everything that you can think of that might matter. It means what's first. And so the guiding policy is sort of at that level of what do we really have to do here, and what are we doing and what are we not doing to deal with the diagnosis that we created. And then the most important part of a strategy, the part that it's so easy to leave out because people like to think of strategy as this high-level conceptual thing, is the coherent action. You have to do something. And what you do has to be coherent in several ways. The first way is it has to deal with the problem or the diagnosis and the guiding policy. It has to implement it. It has to be coherent in that you shouldn't do things that fight each other. You shouldn't say, oh, we are going to burn less oil and at the same time we're going to import more oil.